Hey everybody, Dustin Thompson, Sierra Club Delaware Chapter Director. In our last video, we talked about why tax credits won't really mean more power for you and me, and are likely only going to mean more of our money going to data centers. So the question still is, if it's not tax credits that's the problem, it's not RGGI or the RPS, why can't we build more power plants? Last year, we did a video series on PJM and the issues around getting power plants through their queue and getting the power online. The good news is that PJM has actually cleared a lot of its queue for power plants of all kinds. So why can't we get them built? In those videos, we talked about the next bottlenecks for power plants as well, namely supply chains and local siting issues. On the siting side, it's very hard to build new power plants. Even a small solar farm is becoming really hard to build due to local zoning and opposition. In Kent County, you can't develop utility solar at all. In Sussex County, it takes over a year just to build 20 acres of solar on leased land that stays in the family, which that's about 4 megawatts of solar, not a lot. And Newcastle County is about one utility scale project from meeting their cap on solar development in the county. It's also very expensive and ripe with liability to put solar on for public use on already developed land, like warehouse buildings or car parks. There's a lot of leasing arrangements, there's liability issues, so it tends to be more expensive. Steel also is very, very expensive right now because of tariffs. You use a lot of steel when you do those kinds of solar siting. So if it's challenging to develop a quiet, non polluting power source, what do you think the challenge is for a dirtier, noisier, and larger power plant options? The options there are very limited, and there are options in terms of siting commissions and other policy levers, but they're really hard to get done politically. So siting has become a really big issue in building any new power facility of any kind. However, the biggest issue we're facing right now, honestly, is supply chain constraints. For better or worse, the entire developed world is in an AI arms race right now. That means the demand for more and more power is being felt all around the world. At the same time, the US is dramatically incentivized and scaled up chip production, chips like for computers, domestically. We onshored a ton of chip manufacturing facilities with the CHIPS Act under Biden. And while the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, had a similar future in mind when it comes to clean power generation, and that included nuclear and hydrogen as well, most of that bill was gutted last year. So we are seeing a massive onshoring of data center supply chains without a corresponding onshoring of power plant supply chains. So we are still heavily reliant on other nations for the components of power plants and transmission infrastructure as well. The bad news is that those countries we are relying on for those components are the same countries that we're in an arms race with over AI. They're using those components for their own need, and they're trying to sell them to the rest of the world as well. So there's a long wait time for things like transformers for power lines or turbines for power plants. Now that's led to a wait time for a gas plant, which used to be able to be built in a few years. Now it's taking 5 to 7 or more years. And that's when everything goes well. See the siting discussion I mentioned earlier. However, as stated in a previous video, doubling down on gas power is likely going to cause gas heating and electricity rates to increase rapidly anyway because we're so reliant on that for exports and other things. Nuclear components are taking even longer. Don't even get me started on SMRs again that are not yet out of the lab and so don't have any supply chains. The nuclear plants that we've been building for a lot of time, decades, they're taking even longer. On top of the already long construction time that they take, they're averaging 10 to 15 plus years to build. Now, solar can be propped up pretty quick, even with batteries, but the scale is challenging for the moment we're in with the skyrocketing demand for power. Now, wind could be built in 4 to 6 years if policies were to allow for it, but it currently doesn't at the federal level. So that's a tough sell as well. So the simple fact is that while data centers can be built in 2 to 3 years, they also use as much power as a large city in some cases, and power plants take a lot longer. We simply cannot keep up with demand, and the path that we're on is not sustainable for us as energy customers.